Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Cosgriff. I've been working with Adam on the adult forum, and welcome to our first adult forum since Overbrook Church's services went online. We appreciate everybody tuning in for this very special presentation. I'll just explain how this is going to work. I will introduce Lucy. She will give her presentation, and then afterward, there will be an opportunity for you all to ask questions or make comments. I've muted everyone to ensure that we can all hear what Lucy has to say. Afterward, if you wish to ask a question or say something, you can raise your hand and hopefully I will see you and call on you, and then you can unmute yourself, or if you prefer, you can ask your question in the chat box. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lucy Duckworth, whom I don't really need to introduce to most of you because Lucy and her family have been members of Overbrook for some time. Lucy is a 17-year-old senior at Masterman High School, and she has kindly agreed to talk to us about the exciting and very important work that she and some other young people are doing for this election. So thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. It's very sweet, and I'm excited to talk to you about this, and I'm excited that you're excited about this. And let me just confirm before I start, I think I'm spotlighted, right? I can't tell from my perspective.
I think I put the wrong person. Just give me 1 second. It moved on me. Sorry.
Okay, all good.
I got to find you. Here we go. There.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, great. So, one of the takeaways I've had from working on this project is that young people totally get a bad rep, right, for not being politically involved. And, in some part as they should, right? But I've really realized with working with this project that, young people or any group, wants to get involved, I think just needs to be aware of opportunities like registering to vote, like being a poll worker in a way that's accessible to them. And that's what the Poll Hero Project really tries to do. And I found out about the project back in July. So like a lot of people, I was totally out of my normal routine, right? I generally work, I'm generally on my feet all day, and restaurants were closed, so I couldn't do that. And I was doing so much stuff online on Zoom, like all of you are, I'm sure, just looking at a screen for too many hours of the day, and really feeling a real disconnect sometimes between what I was doing and what I felt like actually made an impact, and at the same time I was feeling more politically aware than I had been ever before. Obviously we're all reading the news this year, and it can be crazy and sometimes hard to believe, but I was feeling like there's so much going on in the world and in 2020, and at the same time more than ever I feel like I'm not doing anything to help with that, and I'm not sure if I can do anything, right? I can't really knock on doors or go to rallies or any of that kind of stuff. So there was a total disconnect there. And around that time, it was late July, I actually saw a social media post, an Instagram post that said, hey, you should become a poll worker. And it was from this organization, this really small organization called the Poll Hero Project. So I started reading about what they did, and I basically realized there's this huge issue I didn't even know about. And so basically, like in summary, America has a poll worker shortage, and this year more than any other year, because as I'm sure all of you know who have actually gone to a polling place and voted before, I have not without my parents or anything like that. But many of the people who man these polling stations tend to have been doing this work for many years. I think the average age of a poll worker is 62. And a lot of those folks who have been doing this really important work were feeling in the primaries, I can't come in and do this. It's just not safe for me, with coronavirus, with the pandemic. And that definitely made sense, right? But it definitely created a lot of issues too. And in the primaries, there were just but dozens of polling stations, and I'll use Philadelphia as an example, that had to close because there weren't people to work the polls. And in my precinct in Philadelphia, there are generally 4 poll workers who man that station, and 3 out of 4 of them dropped out over COVID concerns. And when you have 1 out of 4 people who generally work a polling station, obviously it creates issues. And there were, for example, in my neighborhood, 9 polling stations consolidated into 1. And that's a really big issue, right? Because obviously you're still, it doesn't mean you can't vote. Your polling station just gets moved. But as I'm sure you all know too, that voting and generally civic engagement is supposed to be a really easy process. It's supposed to be frictionless and pleasant and efficient. And whenever it's not, people just don't do it, right? And people have to go to work, people have to take care of their kids. They can't afford to be standing in lines at polling places and potentially getting sick, right, because of coronavirus. And that was a real issue. And that wasn't just in Philadelphia, but we saw that in Milwaukee and Detroit and Cleveland and a lot of these big cities. So what the Poll Hero Project was doing was saying, hey, we can fix this problem by recruiting people who have some more resistance, right? Young people, to do this work, who maybe should have been doing this work in the first place because they are totally fine to be standing on their feet 14 hours a day. And they're really excited to make the $200 you make when you become a poll worker. So basically that was the philosophy behind the Poll Hero Project. And I signed up to be a poll worker in Philadelphia, like through their service. And then I signed up to be a volunteer that same day. And what the Poll Hero Project does, our process, is that we have a one-on-one interaction with every single person who signs up, because a lot of them, tend to be 17, 18 years old. And these sort of, these processes of getting involved in government, doing these sort of actions can totally be bureaucratic. Those of you who have been a poll worker or have been trying to vote this year, I'm sure know that it is totally frustrating sometimes to actually start and complete a process that involves the government. So basically what we were trying to do was, make sure that every person who signed up with us had someone to answer all their questions, had someone to send them the application materials, to email their election official if they didn't hear back. And that's what our organization does. So this organization, the Poll Hero Project, I joined, and I realized when I first joined in July, it was a group of 10 high school students and college students from Princeton. And most of us couldn't actually vote. I'm 17, I won't be able to vote. But we were really excited about getting our peers to sign up. And our first goal was registering 100, not 100, well, it was 100 at first, and then it was 1,000 young people to become poll workers in cities like Philadelphia and Milwaukee and Detroit. And we started basically using social media as the way to reach young people. And that was the way I found out about it too. And what we realized is that, in this year, especially when we're only online, we're only kind of using our screens to get in touch with people, you're not going to hear about opportunities through word of mouth at coffee hour or at work or at your school. You need to take advantage of these platforms, like Facebook, that maybe we sometimes think of as not so serious, to use them to spread the opportunities that are serious. And that's what we did. So, throughout the summer, I was basically with my team developing a strategy to effectively make our message go viral. And we would, basically reach out to strangers across the country and ask them to sign up and then to share the opportunity with their friends. And it ended up being really effective. And we started, signing up kids across the country, like in Detroit. And then we would have them spread the message to their other friends who also live in Detroit. And as I'm sure if you've ever used Facebook or something, the more people that see a post, right? When things start catching on and becoming a trend, it starts growing by itself, right? It starts sort of growing exponentially. And when we saw, one person saw our opportunity and then shared it with 2 friends, and then those 2 friends shared it with 2 more friends. And a lot of our growth really happened that way. Which was really exciting, considering we were all doing it from our bedrooms. what's really cool about this project is that we've never had an in-person meeting. I never, met any of these people actually through school or through some organization I've ever actually been in a building or been in person with these people. It's totally happened online. It's happened through Zoom, like our meeting right now. And that was really exciting to know, hey, things can actually get done online. And our team, the people who are actually running the project itself, like me, were people who were excited by the mission, and not only signed up to be a poll worker, but then emailed us being like, hey, how can I join and do more? And so we have weekly Zoom meetings at Sunday, and we all live across the country from each other. Our team is everywhere from California and Vermont and Florida. I'm one of few people who actually live in Pennsylvania, and it's been really exciting to meet all of these people. And so, we started reaching these goals of, I can actually, 1,000 people have registered to become poll workers. How can we get to the next step? And we've realized that the internet totally builds off itself. So once you have a little bit of footing, every bit really helps to make the next level. And it totally works exponentially. And that was really exciting. And we started getting some cool media opportunities that we realized were some of the best ways of getting our message out there. And especially, a lot of news outlets now have platforms on social media platforms. So, NBC is not just, the news organization. They actually have a little Snapchat account that, broadcasts to millions of young people who use Snapchat. And so when we were able to put our message on not just, traditional media, but on social media, like media in the form of social media, that was really, really effective. I'll flash forward to now. It's, almost November. We're almost at the election. We've signed up 32,000 poll workers and counting. And we have focused in cities like Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia, like Cleveland, like Detroit, cities that really needed poll workers, and they tend to be big cities and sort of cities that are in swing states where really every vote really counts. But we have people who have signed up through our platform from all 50 states. And the cool thing about what we do is that you can sign up from whatever county you live in, and we'll help you get registered. We just target on certain cities that really need that kind of help. And it's been really exciting. And I think we are really seeing the effect of this work in Philadelphia. In my school alone, which only has 400 some high schoolers, 70 of us signed up to be poll workers through the Poll Hero Project. And, we're now all actually receiving our polling assignments, and we're all receiving training. And it's so exciting to see 3 months after I joined this project, it's actually happening. We're actually signing up, and we're hearing from people from, all of these 32,000 people we've signed up that I got my assignment in Cleveland. I got my assignment in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's so exciting knowing that the majority of these people are 17, 18, or maybe a little bit older, but are really excited to do this. And in Philadelphia, they're reporting, and they say it's quote overwhelming, so it's been slow to hear back, but they have an overwhelming number of people who have signed up to be poll workers, and they say it's 50% more than they have on any given year. And I'm not trying to take credit for the Poll Hero Project, but I do think there is a spirit generally of involvement this year that is really exciting, especially given the fact that so much is different about this year, and so much can be, kind of sad about the ways we're totally distanced from each other. But things can totally still happen. Grassroots efforts like this can happen and can be completely effective. It's so exciting to me to think that I met all of my coworkers and my teammates completely through Zoom. I don't even live in the same state as many of them. And this project has started, and it's going to finish, and it's going to have completely happened during the pandemic. And it just gives me hope for what can get done, like, maybe virtual church, virtual adult forum. So much can happen, and can happen really effectively through these online platforms. And my second sort of takeaway was that, young people totally do want to get involved, and we definitely do get a bad rep for voting the least, and in many ways we should, right? But at the same time, they are interested in being involved. And, this year, almost more than any other year, feeling like you have some sort of personal responsibility to make a contribution to your country in that way. I just think that, organizations and government sort of needs to get on their level at this point, which is the platforms we're spending most of our time on, which is online, which is using social media. And that's what the Poll Hero Project really tried to do. It was like cater to this audience that we knew wanted to get involved. We just needed to make sure that we were getting involved in a way that we could actually reach them. And then I guess, my third and maybe the most exciting part of this is just sort of looking at my own enthusiasm for this project and my teammates' enthusiasm for this project. And it's this idea that, maybe we're starting to create this habit of lifelong involvement. And as many of you know who have voted at the same polling place over years, the same people will staff those polls year after year. And that work is really important to them. And if they've been doing it for tens of years, why can't we? So the exciting thing is that this is not just, something you do one year. It's something that once people do it, one time, they get the poll working bug and they want to come back year after year. And I don't mean to speak for myself, my older self or my teammates, but it's exciting to think that this could, maybe be the start of a new generation of people, having this habit of being involved, poll working, but generally and civically. And that's a really exciting trend to try to reverse, right? Young people being actually politically involved, young people being active, and not just in voting, but in ways to help other people vote. And, if you, at this point, it is, I think, October 18th, so we're really getting close to the election. A lot of polling places and counties at this point have a lot of poll workers, but many of them still need more. And if you too would like to sign up, I'll do a shameless plug. You can go to pollhero.org/sign up. And, obviously, if you have younger kids, maybe kids who are 17 in Pennsylvania, most places you can be 17 and work the polls, 17 or older, many of whom will already be off that day. I totally encourage them to sign up, and then they'll also make between $100 and $300, which is very exciting for a high school student. So I really encourage you to sign up, or those, maybe who would like to sign up and get involved, because every person working the polls really counts. And I think that's it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. That's wonderful. So I open it up, I guess, for questions now. You want to raise your hand and then call. Okay, Jasmine, and unmute yourself then. Susie. Sorry, I'm reading and my head's going one way. Sorry.
Okay. Lucy, thank you. Wonderfully exciting news. Now, what would an assignment look like that you would get?
An assignment would be, receiving your poll working training, which is going to be online. It's going to be a Zoom call probably for an hour or two. And then they would send you, the address of your polling station. I haven't gotten my assignment yet, but I've heard that a lot of people are. And what sort of training do you get? So it differs for high school students, specifically if you're under 18 and people who are actually adults. There are some things you legally cannot do, but they basically walk you through the process of what happens when people ask you these hard questions like, I thought I was supposed to vote here, but my name isn't on this list, or I don't know if I already sent in a mail-in ballot or not. So they walk you through how to answer some of those questions, how to direct people to the polling equipment, and there are going to be new protocols this year, obviously, because of coronavirus, and a lot of polling stations are going to be using different sorts of protection. And what is the deadline to sign up? So there is not, and specifically in Philadelphia, there is not a concrete deadline, which can be frustrating, but it's basically rolling because they always need more poll workers. To that, I would say sign up if you haven't already, and the earlier the better. Your county will tell you if they have too many poll workers, but that is very rarely the case, and that's why they very rarely actually have deadlines to sign up. But the earlier the better, so they can give you a polling assignment. Let's see, locations. We don't know yet, so yeah, so to that I would say we don't actually know how many polling locations are going to be open until pretty much the last minute. I was talking with Al Schmidt, who's our city commissioner, and he was saying a lot of this stuff happens in the very week before the election because people are still filing for mail-in ballots, people are still registering to vote. So they don't have a clear idea, but they are looking to open up a significant more percentage of polling locations than they had in the primaries. They only had half, 50% of their normal locations this spring. And so what I've heard is, quote, more than that 50%. So so the more, the more poll workers they have, the more polling places they will open. That's good to hear that your polling location is now open. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Well, you didn't answer Eileen's question.
Oh, sorry. Let me look. Let's see. Difference between a poll worker and a poll watcher. I actually just sort of learned the difference recently, and I think don't take my word on this because I don't think I'm the most educated on what being a poll watcher is, but I think that was basically making sure that the process was going right and there wasn't any voter fraud versus actually working the polls, actually making sure people are doing the voting action themselves, if that makes sense. So kind of overseeing versus facilitating the process.
Yeah. I can just say I had training yesterday to be a poll watcher, and that's absolutely right, Lucy. That is the basic distinction.
I think a poll watcher works for one candidate, right, Elizabeth? Is that what
yeah, I think you could. Well, my sister just got recruited, is doing it for the organization Common Cause. So, I mean, you're not supposed to act in a partisan fashion. You're just supposed to facilitate the process, answer questions of any voter, regardless of party. But yeah, often they are recruited by a particular party.
And there are some restrictions. They can't come in when there are voters in the polling place. It's different.
Yeah, their rules vary from state to state. Anne-Marie, I think you had a question, or
Elizabeth, I'm under the impression that poll watchers have to be registered in the division where they are watching the poll. Is that not the case?
I'm not sure that's true. You have to get credentialed, but I think you have to, it's a state thing. I think you can go anywhere within the state.
I thought that was a decision that, yeah, you have to, or state Supreme Court. Along these lines, this is Gretchen. Tom worked the polls when we were in New Jersey, and the poll workers themselves had to be at any given poll location an even number of people registered in each of the two major parties. And I wondered, Lucy, since you all are underage, if that's something that applies in Pennsylvania or any of the states where you're working and how that would work.
I'll be totally frank, I'm not sure about that. And obviously for a 17-year-old who doesn't have a party affiliation, I guess that wouldn't really apply. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure about that. And I guess for Philadelphia, which is a very blue city, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if there will be enough people for both parties. But yeah, I would have to look that up.
Fair enough. I have another question for you. I teach high school history, and our history department is doing panels for the whole high school the next 2 Tuesdays on all things election. I would love to plug Poll Worker Hero some way. So I don't know. I would love to get in touch with you and talk about the best way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll shoot you an email. That sounds great. And I'll put this, I'll put our link in the chat. So in case you're interested, you can check that out.
Great. Thank you.
Lucy, one quick question for teenagers who might want to get involved, but maybe they have a physical vulnerability that during the pandemic time they can't show up. What other ways are there for those folks to get involved? Any behind the scenes, maybe as part of the team?
Yeah, definitely. So if they would like to, at this point, apply to volunteer with our team, they can totally do that. And there are, if you go to pollhero.org, there is an application section. I will say at this point, when we are, 2 weeks out from the election, I guess, every day really counts. So if they would like to apply to get involved with us, they can definitely do that now. And, obviously other ways that I've realized that you can help register to people to vote in a nonpartisan way, making cold calls, and there are definitely parties that will have you make calls for either side, but there are also opportunities to make calls and make emails and texts just to get, unregistered folks to vote.
Do you encourage people to vote in any particular way, either by mail or in person, because of all the confusion about mail-in ballots?
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe not my expertise, but I would definitely say that, if you can vote in person and, you don't have a mail-in ballot, certainly do that. And many counties, Philadelphia, you can actually go and vote in person early, which I know a lot of people are doing. And that to me feels very secure. You probably won't be waiting in a long line on election day. And if you've already registered for a mail-in ballot, you can just bring that mail-in ballot with you and go to one of these vote early days, and you can actually vote in person. That's the way I would recommend. It feels that's a faster process, and you'll actually be there in person, and it'll get done before November 3rd.
Okay.
Lucy, there's some scuttlebutt about possibly people disrupting the process at the polls, either subtly or very actively. Do you know of any protections for the people that are poll watching?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we definitely heard about that during the debate. To my knowledge, I'm not sure either way of protection. And I know Al Schmidt, who runs all the elections in Philadelphia, is very capable, and I'm sure is taking care of that. But it's a valid question. I think, from my end, you can do what you can do, and what I can control is to show up in the first place. So I think that what we can do as normal people, I guess, is to make sure we're there. Although I will say I'm confident that it's going to run smoothly, but I am not sure specifically of any anticipated police protection. I think I would have to look into that. Yeah.
Do you send, when you're getting assignments, do people, like if you have a friend, can you get the same assignment as your friend so you'll be there with somebody that you know? Yeah,
well, it really depends on where you live, your address. So they tend to group you with people who live even just within the 3 blocks with you. And I'm sure you could coordinate that with your election official. But they tend to really make sure that your polling place is very close to where you live. So most likely it would be your neighbor, if your neighbor happened to be your friend. If not, possibly not. Yeah.
Oh.
And to that end, I think someone said something about poll watching. Generally, you're a poll worker in the county in which you live, and even more specifically within the 3 blocks of where you live. This year, possibly a little further. And do I know Annie Doyle? I think. Annie Doyle, is she a student at Friend Select? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably.
Okay, yeah, no, she works on this project with me, so.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I was thinking, yeah. She's a member at Lourdes, and her father is the Democratic committeeman over, we're at Overbrook. it seemed to me you were doing the same thing. So yeah, okay. She is, I don't think she's elected. I'm actually elected, which is cool. Nobody ever knows it. But she's been working several elections
What, honey? Do you want to?
for several years.
Oh, great. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah.
So Lucy, I had a question. Are there any plans to somehow expand what you're doing this time? And you talked about how it's gotten young people energized and involved and interested in the electoral process. Are there plans to try to do something else with this group of people and this enthusiasm that you've got besides being poll workers?
Yeah, no, we've been talking about that because we've kind of definitely bypassed what we thought our original goal was, which was going to be kind of a one and done process on November 3rd. But we've been talking about, ways to use this team, especially because we're hearing that we're not going to know, right, who's the winner on the night of November 3rd. So we're talking about that and possibly thinking about, recruiting poll workers for primaries on a more local level. And yeah, it's in the works, but we're thinking about that too. Yeah.
Good.
Lucy, have you considered a career in politics?
I have not. I'm taking U.S. government, and I'm realizing how difficult it is. But I'm definitely excited to be a civically engaged citizen at the least. Yeah.
Terrific work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys all for listening.
So Lucy,
Adam?
I have a question, which is a little bit attached to Anne-Marie's and your intention to be a civically minded citizen. So what I'm so impressed by is I'm impressed by the young people in our country right now and their imagination and their energy and their creativity and their ability to try and meet the needs of a moment with just some real strength, even though, like, as a 17-year-old, you aren't franchised. You don't actually have a voice in how decisions get made on an electoral level. That said, I suspect that you in this group of people, some of whom can vote, some of whom cannot, do care about things. And that voting is a means to an end in some sense, right? Like, it is a way by which we get to use our voice to prop up leaders who we think might be valuable in initiating a world that we would be proud of. So without you trying to endorse any particular candidate, like, as you talk with the groups of young people in your midst, what priorities for our world do you find especially important? And I say this also knowing that it is the distinct privilege of young people to look at the decisions made by old people and say, you've got the priority wrong. And it's the privilege of old people to tell the young people that they don't know what they're talking about. So that's always going to be present. But I think at this point in our history, I think we would be wise to listen to young people and their visions of the world. And so, yeah, so what do you prioritize looking at the world, and what's valuable to you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think this is definitely a year in the last 4 years unlike any other. And I think a lot of us are taking it back a step than maybe we would have otherwise. And in trying to, our priority, right, and with a lot of my teammates I've been talking with, is ensuring that the way America is supposed to work, in which everyone who wants to vote can vote and who is eligible, right, that's what we're trying to defend right now. Basically, like the foundations of our country that make it work, and not just that you should be able to vote if you want to vote, but that people should have faith in the electoral process. People should have faith that their vote is going through and that their vote really matters. And that's something that's really important to me and some of the people I work with, who are young people who do hear our friends say, right, I don't really want to vote because I don't like either candidate, and that's going to be right. So I think that we're really passionate about protecting this thing that makes our country run, which is voting, and not just making voting happen, but making sure that people have faith in the process and know that it really matters to show up. And I think like what you were saying is very true, that young people are always, like, every generation is very ambitious about creating a better world and about achieving equality for all people. And I think this generation certainly is, and it's starting, I think, earlier with like a heightened sense of civic engagement and in voting, because this year more than any other, at least in my lifetime, we are talking about the protecting your right to vote. So it gives me faith that we're starting to hear about this sooner, we're starting to get involved sooner, and that can add up and make a difference. Yeah.
Thank you. I have more questions. So here's another question. I recognize that your understanding of like the value of civic engagement is not just in a sort of recent awakening, but probably has some roots in the past. So do you have early memories of like what it means to vote, or like, and in what ways have in your house or in your community voting been a value that has been taught?
Yeah, definitely. And my dad's on this call, but I used to always go to, vote with my dad and vote with my grandfather. And we would vote at the fire station near our house. And that was really exciting. I mean, the other thing about this fire station, which was our polling place, was it wasn't just our polling station, right? Like twice a year. It was our, the place where we had the MLK Day of Service. We had all these community events. There would be potlucks there. So it was definitely a sense of not just voting, but like the communities coming together to do something and achieve something. And it made me be like, oh, this is the place where we also make cards for people. And we also have dinner. So it definitely felt like, voting is just something you do when you live in a community with other people and you care about them. And, I always had to wear the sticker, which was very fun. Yeah, I voted sticker. So of course I grew up thinking I'm excited to vote when I'm 18 and totally frustrated that I'm going to miss the voting date by some months or something. And I think more recently, as my friends, turn 18 and some of my classmates, and hearing in a year where they're very dissatisfied with both people on the ballot, a sense that, I'm so frustrated that I don't even want to vote. And it's not an apathy. I think it's more of a sense of frustration and maybe and I'm not to say that it's not thought through or that they're not, right in their concerns, but I definitely think now it's not just a sense of this is, community engagement. This is something that I've grown up with. It's getting everyone to realize that it's such a privilege to be able to vote. And at the end of the day, it's often not about, choosing our perfect person. It's just about, protecting our basic rights as Americans. So yeah, that's what it means to me more recently.
Well done, Lucy. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just hope we get some of your volunteers. I'm nervous.
Yeah, very true. You can still sign up. They still recruit people, like even the days before the election. But yeah, sooner the better.
And I think the shoes, we're going to be at church, and I think Trudy and Phil Shoes area is going to be there also. So.
Yes, we are. We have been incorporated into your voting site.
Oh, good. Are you going to be working?
I have to find out if I can. I haven't worked in a while, but it really depends. I don't know what kind of work you need, and that's the whole problem.
breathing. Oh, I hope you do. I'd feel much better if you were there too.
Well, I'm going to say it's fascinating because, again, like I said, I was just writing about, due to my age and whatnot, you know, we're not excited to be involved with this pandemic. But, you know, certainly if I can, I'm going to try. So excited to be there. I've already voted. I am so happy with this absentee ballot. And they're doing a good job. I mean, I went over to the Overbrook Elementary School where they have the site, and I was just amazed at the lines of people who were there to pick up or to register, and I was there to drop off my ballot. So I feel good about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to take a lot of, I think, clear communication right now. And this is why I think I'm inspired by the good work that you're doing, Lucy. We, as a polling place, we regularly get people who are showing up to drop off their ballot at the church right now.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion. I mean, and making sure that people are well informed and given the training to communicate clearly to each other, I think will be really important at this time. Yeah. So we've sort of have had to scramble to figure out, okay, so where is the drop-off location for this particular precinct, so that we can immediately direct them towards that that particular drop-off location. And one person said, "Is this voter suppression?" I'm like, I assure you, this is not voter suppression. We're not trying to. I can't take your ballot. I promise you, I am not like qualified to do this, but I will direct you to a place where you can securely drop off your ballot.
Sign on the doors with a couple of other addresses?
Maybe. I mean, we'll see. I don't think we're at that level of problem yet. But you know, we're gonna get the sign that has like the door with like 6 signs on it, because everybody's got a sign right now. Like the preschool's like, don't go this way, go this way. You know, so I'm not sure we're there yet, but yeah, there. I mean, the collective civic engagement this year does not end with voting. It ends with clearly communicating, or it begins, I suspect, with clearly communicating, in addition to voting, how to vote to other people, so that clear communication and good information is being disseminated.
May I just interject here? It's very interesting. By submitting my ballot, what really made it good was that I had confirmation on my computer that the ballot was received. You actually get confirmation, and that really was good. I have neighbors who say, "Oh, I don't know if it's going to get there," but I have that confirmation that it was received. So the city of Philadelphia is sending out confirmation via the computer to tell you that your ballot is safely accounted for. So I thought that was good for me.
Mm.
Yeah, I think so. Are there any more questions for Lucy or comments?
I'm gonna
yeah,
run to my next job. But Lucy, thank you so much, and we're so grateful for the work and for the leadership that you are engaged in right now. And we as a church are proud to follow you in the good work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Very nice.
Thank you, Lucy, so much.
Elizabeth, as far as you know, this is recorded. So
it is recorded, and I'm sure
find it on the church.
I don't know. You might ask your daughter, but we'll figure it out and get the word out to people who aren't able to attend in person. And again, thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Lucy.
it.
Thank you very much
Hey, Lucy.
for what you're doing and for doing this.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah,
Excited to talk to you.